Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 43rd Annual MEIEA Conference. As Armin just introduced us, it is great to see you all. And quite frankly, I'm thrilled to be here. If you want to reflect on the last couple of years of what we've seen in our industry, what we've seen in education, and what we've seen in the world, it has been a spell. And I am so grateful for this organization and this community to be able to come together to recharge and try to make sense of it. Today, we're going to start off with one of our first paper presentation panels. We're having to do these in a different format due to the pandemic. You can find all the individual presentations at the MEIEA Summit link there under presentations. What we're going to do today is reflect on one of those first groupings, and this is about teaching and pedagogy. Again, we all wear lots of hats. We are musicians, we are educators, we are producers, we are consultants, we are also family members and all of those things. But I think first and foremost, at least in this group, we are teachers. And so I'm really thankful that we're going to lead off today's conversation, figuring out how do we work through some of the biggest challenges we're now facing in academia. And I, for one, came out of this semester almost just falling across that finish line. So I'm really grateful for today's panelists and presenters, which include Christopher Reale from the University of Ramapo in New Jersey, and he has a presentation, Learning the Music Industry at YouTube University. We're also joined today by Joseph Farley from the University of the West Indies, who will be talking about public and private partnerships in the music industry education, a mixed method study of the music industry technical camp in Trinidad and Tobago. And then we're going to hear from Professors Monica Herzig and Stan Renard from Indiana University, and they're going to discuss the effects of improvisation training in the arts entrepreneurship curriculum. I think first we are going to start off with Dr. Christopher Reale. Christopher, thank you for joining us today.
All right, am I come on screen here?
Please do.
Oh boy. Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see virtually. Well, I'm looking at Scott, but it's nice to see whoever's out there in TV land. So happy to be here.
Well, we are thrilled you're here, sir. And you have a really compelling bit of research that I'd like to talk about. As this semester wore on, I think there was a lot of exhaustion. There was a lot of mental stress, topics that we'll be addressing later this summit.
Sure.
And, students would come up to me week 12 of the semester, week 13 of the semester, and they'd say, "Hey, professor," and they'd ask me a question about something we covered in depth week 1 or week 2. And I started to just sort of flippantly say, "Hey, come on, we studied this. Just Google it. Just watch a YouTube video of it." And based on your research, maybe that's not the best answer for us to do. What did you cover in your project?
Well, so, since I've been teaching, classes, history classes and industry classes for quite some time now. And I always lead off in the fall or every semester. So, hey, most of the things I teach you, you could probably find out through YouTube. And, but then trying to spin that into like, well, what's the value of us being in the classroom? So as I was thinking about presenting for the conference, I was like, well, I think it's time to put my theory to the test. Because we know that that many of our students will just go look up something. They won't do the reading, and they'll just go find a video online. And so I decided to let's do a little more methodical study of what can students find out through some internet research, primarily through Google and YouTube. And YouTube, as I say in the paper, is the second largest search engine in the world. And I decided to focus on publishing because publishing is it's a prickly topic. Students get confused by it. It brings in licensing, copyright, all these things. So I figured that would be a good test case to see what do the so-called industry experts have to say about this topic. And I learned a little bit about how the YouTube algorithms work, and why things pop at the top of the search that have literally nothing to do with what you typed in. And knowing that students will click on that and thinking that they're expecting a video about X, but they get a video about Y. And also sometimes the content is great, but sometimes it's just not. And so I just, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I want to encourage all of our attendees and MEIEA members to check out your research, because you taught me a lot about how that Google algorithm works, how it's thinking literally 3 algorithms stacked on top of each other, thinking about the home page, right, thinking about what's recommended to you once you've entered something, and then also queuing up what videos come after.
Right.
And you also shared the astonishing figure that there's 1 billion videos viewed every 24 hours.
Yeah, that blew my mind. Yeah.
Right. So this really seems like, I bet our students are doing the research and maybe getting misinformed. So we have to get in front of them. So going into using music publishing as your case study, what did you find reviewing some of the top videos that came up in the feed when you started doing those searches?
Well, as I said, in the talk, I think the best one is one of the oldest ones. So this Coursera course that dates back to about 2012, and it's uploaded from a grainy VHS video. And George Howard from Berkeley provides a really concise overview, but that doesn't even appear in the search catalog. That doesn't even appear in the search. And so I guess one of the things that popped out to me is that things that I thought were really high quality, not just in production style, but in content, because I was really primarily focused on the content. There's no way for the YouTube algorithm to suggest a video based on how accurate the information is, which can be severely problematic in lots of other areas. And it seemed that the more recent videos are the more recent videos, such as George Clinton. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on some of the names. I'm gonna go back and look at my paper here. Some of the researchers are, some of the newer videos are very choppy, very content creator, appealing to millennial, like quick videos. But I guess at the end of the day, what it really stuck out to me was that there are lots of ways to peel a potato, and some of the content, some of the folks did it really well. But at the end, also a lot of them were also trying to get you to buy their other services. So like CD Baby, almost every one of the creators was like, hey, if you'd like to have more information, click subscribe. You can, I can consult for you. CD Baby wants you to sign up for their publishing, so they'll handle all your publishing, but they don't really explain what that means. Right. So, so again, everyone's trying to sell something. And so again, that's why I really appreciated I'm blanking. George's Coursera course because it was basically like, this is just straight up publishing.
Right. Well, one of the reasons that I appreciate this organization and these opportunities to connect so much, and just the fact that we share each other's resources, one of your solutions is so elegant and so simple, and it's something that I would never have thought of. You're going to start building your own YouTube playlists for your classroom.
Right.
That is so smart and so simple, but it's one of those, like, unless we're coming together in forums like this to share those great ideas, we wouldn't know it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've started using more podcasts and videos in place of readings, because I know the students aren't doing the readings, especially the ones that get longer and more technical. So I figured, all right, if I can share this, here's an introductory video on publishing, on licensing, on touring, whatever it may be, and then I can fill in the gaps. And I say that a knowledgeable teacher will then have done all those readings. They'll do all the Passman readings, they'll do all the Winnie Grashke readings, and they'll know all the depth. And they'll say, here's what's really good about the video. Here's some things that they're missing. And as I realized that there's no open course software about music industry classes, I was like, man, that there's an entrepreneurial challenge right there. Like maybe someone of our, one of the viewers at home will go, hey, that'd be great. I can start a class on, open sourceware, music industry thing. And I even thought, that maybe even MEIEA itself could actually, could sort of, curate a list like this, because the Artist House music stuff is great, but it's old and they've stopped, they don't exist. That, of all their 50 or 60 videos, some of the content's a little dated, and so I thought maybe if MEIEA can't do it, then I'll start myself. So I'm happy. If anybody has any recommendations, please send them my way. I'd love to check them out, because there's too much for to even look at.
Well, that's literally a clarion call for this whole summit. That is something for all of us to be thinking about and brainstorming over the summer. I know for a fact that as I watched your presentation, I was taking notes, thinking, hey, the organization could do this, and we could have a post on the website for all of this content. So you're going in a great direction, Christopher. I really found your research informative and inspiring. It reminds us all that we have a role in the classroom. We can't just hand a couple of links to everybody. So thank you so much for participation. We're going to rope back to you in a second, but I'm going to bring on Joseph Farley at this point. Joseph, good morning.
Yes, hi, good morning, Scott. It's wonderful to be here and to participate in this summit.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. You're looking at some of the same challenges that Christopher had from a different lens: how to uncover tough topics, how to level up students. You were also looking at lots of ways of increasing professionalism and hireability in young people. And your research is about a case study with, I hope I pronounced it correctly, Danjen, which is an organization that you helped found, which does intensive workshops on music industry study, professionalism, and production. Could you talk for a minute about Danjen?
Sure. So, Diane, I started in 2013 upon returning to Trinidad and Tobago and realizing the great need for training in the music industry study. So, I would have done a survey of programs locally and realized that there are there are training opportunities in traditional aspects of music, such as music production, music performance, and so on. But when the opportunity comes for training in the business of music,
Right.
There are some shortcomings there. So Diangen was started to provide training in the business and technology aspects of music.
Now, was that something that you saw not being covered explicitly in universities? Because you're also an educator. And so it's interesting that you have that role, yet you also are involved in Digen. How are the two unique, and what makes the intensives strong, would you say?
Yes, well, the current opportunities really lie only in music performance and music education. And I suppose that's because, in terms of if we talk about monetary value or monetary opportunity, those presents the largest monetary opportunity. But in terms of the business of music, that has always been lacking. And being involved in both private education and public education, I was able to see this and provide, create some sort of program to address these shortcomings.
Well, one of the things I think was really interesting is that you to start the flipped classroom. Could you speak for a moment about the concept of the flipped classroom and how that really helps set individual study and engagement with your students?
Right. So certainly the flipped classroom, one of the the points in terms of delivery of the curriculum has been delivering 90 hours of training over an intensive 6 month period, 6 week period, sorry. So that would mean that the classes have to be very intensive. And the flipped classroom is an instructional strategy that allows work to be done prior to actually having in-person physical classes. So students would have been exposed to various techniques through cases and simulations that they would have to conduct online and then or complete online, so that when they come to class, those classes would focus on practical context. Right. All right. So we demonstrate mixing techniques, mastering techniques in the actual recording studio environment. Students would build on various cases or develop digital marketing plans, or so the activities come to life in the physical classroom. But at home or prior to coming to class, students would have done that foundation reading, study certain videos and cases, so that when we actually get to the actual classroom, it would help in terms of their preparedness and provide the opportunity to help them expand their knowledge.
Absolutely. One of the things that I thought was really interesting about how you were, and your research covers a cohort of students going through this program and then looking at their levels of success, skill acquisition, and acumen at the end, which fascinatingly mirrors some of the work that our next paper presenter is also looking at. One of the things that you were trying to measure, and I want to get it explicitly here, is new venture confidence and achievement. That's really exciting. And I think that helps, put a good framework around what we're trying to do with all of our learners, prepare them for having the confidence to jump into new ventures. Now, I know you did some surveys with students as they went through the program. how did you try to measure new venture confidence? What were the questions asked to see how young people felt about that?
Well, new venture confidence would have been, in terms of the survey would have used the Kirkpatrick's method of evaluating training, one of those instructional design methods to evaluate training. And it would have included questions on how many students actually started new ventures after graduating from the program, as well as those ventures that are still in existence, and how do students actually feel about their role in the ventures, and the impact of the training on them, on convincing them to start those ventures. So as a result of participating in this training, why did you feel that you were able to start this venture, and how did this venture assist you in developing, or how did the training rather assist you in developing this venture and putting you on the right path in terms of music business entrepreneurship? So that is what there would have been questions on the survey, and the participants would have responded, and then based on that we would have conducted the various analysis techniques to derive to understand the changes in learning in terms of before the program, after the program, and try to ascertain the confidence that students would have exuded after.
Well, you had some really positive results coming out of this analysis from this cohort. You had 10 students move from hobbyists to part-time work. You had 12 who said they were inspired to go into future study. 9 of your students had gone on to start new businesses, and 21 felt that they felt empowered enough to teach their friends or their clients some of the foundational skills that they learned. So it seems in many ways that how you're structuring your program really was successful for the cohort.
Definitely. The entire focus and thrust with the program would have been to facilitate entrepreneurship. So that's, I would like to say, we cultivate a culture of entrepreneurship. So it's not only that you attend a program to, develop knowledge and skills and so on, but we want to see you go out there into the industry and experience some type of improvement to your personal careers, as well as some type of improvement to your clients. And, that's what we have been seeing in terms of the feedback. So many persons who would have come into the program as hobbyists said that they have now, because of the training, they were able to develop a business. So it's not only about, being a musician or, offering classes in music, but create a business, an actual entity that's registered either as a limited liability company or some sort of governance structure. They actually have websites, they have social media pages, they have marketing campaigns and marketing techniques that they employ. So it's now a collection of techniques that they would have used to, they would have developed in the program and are now able to use in their careers and businesses.
Well, Joseph, it's absolutely inspiring. It sounds like your students are learning a lot, and you almost just explained what we're going to jump to Monica and Stan to talk about, which is you're helping to foment and build a growth mindset in your students' work and perspectives. Great work. Thank you so much, Joseph. We'll circle back to you in just a moment.
Wonderful.
Monica.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm great. I'm sitting in Germany in the middle of a tour, and it's going wonderful.
And I have to say, you sent me one of the best emails I've ever gotten. You said, I will be there unless there's traffic on the Autobahn. And that just sounded very exciting to me. And I imagined you, exceeding any legal speed limit to making it here to join us today at the 43rd MEIEA Summit. Great to see you.
I did 110 miles today.
Well, that's legal where you're from. So good for you.
Exactly.
So we've been talking about education this morning, student empowerment. And we just heard, Christopher was looking at how we are able to balance online skill acquisition with classroom support. Joseph is looking at ways that public and private partnerships and workshops can exist outside traditional academia. And Joseph was, focusing on a lot of that business acumen. And you and Stan, in your research, were doing it too, but you were approaching business and entrepreneurship and growth mindsets through using a case study around jazz improvisation. That was so interesting. Could you explain how you did that and how you brought that 7-part exercise into your classroom?
So I'm a jazz musician by trade. And several years ago, this was actually a MEIEA sponsored project. I looked at jam sessions, when musicians get together and it works, and looked at the factors. What makes this thing work where you have people get together to try to come up with a creative product, and it seems to be going. So I came up with this 7-factor model saying, okay, if you get together as this unit, you better get the best people you can. Mm-hmm. You have, and that's the most important part, you have to be willing to improvise and take that risk and do that step forward. And you can train improvisation. You have to have a way of mentorship, of sharing with each other. It has to be community driven. There have to be resources. You have to take on specific roles. Some are the leaders, some are the site people. And you have to have this constant evaluation system going, saying, okay, we did a step forward. Is it going the right direction? Maybe we adapt a little bit. So based on that model, I did actually more work with others in the management and entrepreneurship field. And they were like, can we transfer this? Can we do that with any organizations, with any groups? And they found it works. Yes. It's the same principle. It's a toolbox to get together. So Stan and myself, we were teaching parallel classes, arts entrepreneurship classes. And we said, the biggest goal, just like Joseph said, is to develop this growth mindset, to be willing to move forward. And so we thought, well, let's figure out how we can use this model and teach in the classroom using these various factors and coming up with exercises that reinforce these factors. Obviously knowledge, you put information out, but also the willingness to improvise is meaning you have to regularly engage in improvisation exercises. Or the community aspect is you have to find where your resources are. So we developed this set of possible exercises to practice each of these factors, and did it, and had a pre-test to have them all take a creativity test and a post-test. And they all did substantially better. But I have to say, since we were in the Zoom age, they also didn't like it. A lot of them. It was very interesting. It was like the eat your broccoli thing.
Right. And again, this is why, after an especially hard year, mm-hmm. This has been an inspiring process to go through and be reviewing all of your research from you and Christopher and Joseph and the rest of our cohort this weekend, just to be re-inspired to think, okay, how do we rebuild from where we are? How do we find some new energy? So you're using a jazz framework, an improvisational jazz jam framework to build a classroom modality with specific exercises that mimic the things that happen in jazz. What are some of those exercises that you and Dr. Renard came up with?
So, one easy way just to get in the habit of capturing ideas every day is journaling, sure. So I make them do that on a regular basis because, that's been something to be shown in the improvisation world that the more you engage, the better it gets. So regular journaling, techniques of observations, looking at your environment, taking new pathways home, just quick exercises that come from improv comedy also, where you have to react quickly or as quickly as possible. Project-based things, developing ideas, and coming up, I put them together and they have to come up with 100 ideas for for a problem just to go as far and wide as possible. So things like that, just making sure there's every lesson something in there that cultivates this growth mindset.
Well, I really found your work exciting. And even one of the ones that you had in there that I thought, again, as I joked with Dr. Reale, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never thought of having a YouTube playlist of quality content. You and Dr. Renard talk about just moving the classroom around, having students engage physically and change into a new environment physically. That can help someone reset, rethink, and rejoin a group with a different perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing that I've been feeling as an educator, this was my 20th year in the classroom. We're coming out of a pandemic, and we're Zoomed and we have Zoom fatigue, but the world isn't slowing down. We're seeing TikTok accelerate as a platform. We're seeing data become ever more important. We're seeing Spotify build islands in Roblox. It feels very hard to catch up, right? How do I keep the content pieces of my classroom current? But I think what was really powerful and reflected in all of our paper presentations this morning, you all were looking at confidence. You weren't looking at explicit knowledge acquisition outputs. You were looking at the relative confidence in the same way that Joseph was trying to measure venture new venture attainments. And you found that through your exercises, people did have a level of confidence and self-confidence that they were creative humans. Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. So, as you just said, in this technology, it moves faster and faster, and it's really difficult for people to keep up, even for youngsters, when you think they grew up with the technology, but it goes so quickly, it's overwhelming. So the best thing you can have is the skills to deal with it. And so the goal of this whole thing, and same with entrepreneurship, I cannot give them the ideas or the new ventures. I can only provide them with the skills to be willing to come up with ideas and move them forward. So the best thing we can give them is the confidence of saying, yes, I can. And, they really, really, really need that right now. As you said, classrooms, even though we were in class, the faces were empty. It was so difficult for them to get back into life and even just get up in the morning and get yourself to the classroom. Right. It was the worst attendance year ever.
And I'm sure we will see that echoed. One of the things I thought was interesting is these exercises and the way you managed your classrooms with this jam session framework boosted confidence and got your students excited. But one of the most interesting outputs that you had was, and the statistic you found were 36% had higher confidence in their creative capacity post-session. It was females who were outscoring males. And you highlighted that several times in your research, that going through and analyzing all of this foundation for running the classroom really seemed to benefit women. Why do you think that is? Have you and Stan dug into that any further since?
I do a lot of work with jazz and gender. Obviously, jazz is a terrible situation in terms of that. And actually have a book coming out, Jazz and Gender, on Routledge in July, looking at some of the factors. And there is, females are more the community oriented. It's more difficult to step forward and raise your hand and improvise. And that's been shown the way improvisation is taught in middle school, and the girls in puberty are going, nope, not me. So it seems, especially providing that freedom. And doing it with everybody, not just the select few who volunteer to do something. Right. That's one of the key things to make sure everybody is part. And it seems that that really nurtures that we're all part of this, and yes, I can do this kind of feeling, and takes away from that stereotyping. Yeah, we're not entrepreneurs. That's, yeah.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, another thing that you found in your research is that graduate students performed a little less. And that seemed counterintuitive at first, because our older students, they're studying at an advanced level. They should have a stronger foundation, and they should also have, the acumen and maturity to really take some of your concepts and run with that. Why do you think some of your older students were having a particularly hard time this year?
So one of my guesses is that, creativity, the kids, the 5-year-olds, you throw them something, they come up with the wildest ideas. And the way our school system is structured is you have to learn to give yes and no and right and wrong answers, which, the concept of creativity, that's first divergent thinking, first come up with ideas, then go convergent and evaluate them, is not allowed in our school system. The moment you have an idea, you have to evaluate it. So we're losing that. So my guess is that the longer we wait and the further they get, the less and less willingness is there to engage. And by the time they're graduate students, they're going, no, you need to, need the facts and give us what we need to be better, but we don't want to engage in this creativity stuff.
Right. Well, again, your research sets a framework that's inspiring that we could all leverage in our classroom. Joseph's work is showing how workshops and community partnerships can help, focusing again on the growth mindset that you are as well. And Christopher is pointing a way forward for us to build ancillary tools that can augment the classroom rather than just let students go whole hog out and maybe become misinformed. So I'm wondering, as we're looking at all of your research today, are there questions from the community this morning that we can address? And are there other aspects that you want to add to what you've studied? Maybe a last question that I'll ask from anyone who wants to answer. What's next based on what you three have learned this year? How are we gearing up to better support students next fall, to address all of the mental health or motivation issues we might be seeing? What's next for you all? And then we'll see if there's questions from the audience.
I mean, since I'm still on, I'm just throwing mine in, and I'm sure the others take it over. But we're actually really getting more in depth in terms of which exercises work, because we realize this is something really important and we need to reinstill that confidence. So we're redoing the same exercises to see, okay, what is more effective, just more in depth. So more of it. Sure.
Well, it's interesting. One of the questions that just came in, we're looking at more of it, and this is for Monica, you to address, or Joseph or Christopher. One educator came in and said, when it comes to the flipped classrooms and any of these other alternative learning sessions that we're using, it's not necessarily our group who has a hard time. It's interesting. We're used to improvising. Every semester, we're improvising all over again with the foundation that we have. But some of our community members are concerned that it's the students who are not yet ready for this type of learning, who are solely used to a much more didactic, skill-based focused. Anything from you, Monica, or maybe Joseph, to weigh in to say, talking about confidence and talking about new venture ability is much different than maybe high school mathematics. Any solutions for how to broach and bridge students into a much more diverse learning environment?
Yes, I think that's definitely immersion in actually doing it. Students, a lot of training thus far has been focused, in the classroom, lecture type training and so on. but providing more hands-on opportunities for students to actually do it and see it in practice and see it in action. I think that is certainly something that they welcome. And, from based on my experience, a lot of students have welcomed the flipped classroom. They have welcomed these new approaches, but they still want that, physical interaction. So they don't want a simple flipped classroom approach, but they want some sort of mentorship. They still want, internships. So it must be used in, collaboration and in combination with our traditional teaching tools and approaches.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And we're just about out of time, and we're queuing up for the next event of a busy conference. But I want to say unequivocally to Dr. Reale, Dr. Farley, Dr. Herzig, thank you three for your research. Thank you for your dedication to your students. And thank you to contributing it with all of us into forums like this. Going through your work, I also noticed it several times, you all quoting and referencing other MEIA members. So we're showing that this environment really helps. We are building a body of knowledge to help each and every one of us succeed and empower our students at all levels and all interests. So thank you three for helping us start out the 43rd MEIA Summit. I look forward to reading more in depth about all your work, and I encourage everyone who is on today to check out these three presentations. They were really inspiring. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.